Hey guys, you hear that really cool effect on the guitar there? Sounds like Edge, sounds like David Gilmour. I've heard Robert Smith from The Cure use it. I've heard some other guys use it. Brian Potvin from the Northern Pikes. I saw him, I actually played with him a couple times. He just nailed that thing. Listen to The Things I Do for Money off of the Northern Pikes' first album, Big Blue Sky. He does some super cool stuff with with that dotted eighth effect. So hopefully I'm going to teach you how to just nail this effect every time. Your delay setting, how you should be setting up your delay unit. And first of all, I think we should talk about what exactly is happening here. How does this work? So if you're playing straight eighth notes, just an eighth note pattern, nice and even, smooth eighth notes. What happens is the dotted eighth echo fills in the holes between the notes as you play them. You can see that in the red. Each time you play a note, the echo fills in the blank behind it. So the trick there is setting up your delay time so it fills in the note in between your notes properly. So here's how I set my device up. First of all, I set the feedback on it very low. I only want one repeat. I found, just through the years using this effect that if you have too many repeats, it just starts getting mushy and doesn't sound nice, crisp, and clear. So I set the feedback very low. Actually, I set it so I really only get one repeat. The next thing I do is I set my mix level on the device so the repeat is basically as loud as the original note. That gives the effect that I'm playing all the notes when really I'm only playing half of them. And then you have to set your delay time so it's equivalent to a dotted eighth note. So what does that mean? In order to set that a dotted eighth note, you need to know the tempo of your song. All right, and that's normally expressed in beats per minute, and in most cases, that's how often a quarter note occurs. So there's a few different ways you can determine what your tempo is. Ask your drummer. Chances are he'll have no idea. Most of them play by feel, but you're the guitar player. You know what key the song is. He should know what the tempo is, wouldn't you think? But it doesn't work that way. They play by feel. 99.9% of them, 0.1%, they might actually know what the tempo of the song is. The other option is, if it's a popular song, you can Google it, what the tempo is of whatever song it is, and you may find something. But if you don't, if you're using recording software or a computer or YouTube to jam along with songs, which a lot of people do now, there's a couple options as far as the tap tempo. I put a link on here for Best Metronome, and you just play the song, tap along with it with your space key, and it'll tell you what the tempo is. There's also tap tempo apps for your phone. There's a bunch of free ones. I've got one, I just don't know what the name of it is. If I'm tapping along to a song on my phone, it'll tell me what the tempo is. So those are a couple options on how to figure out what your tempo is. So now I know the tempo of my song. How do I determine the delay setting? This is done with some very simple math. Don't get scared. It's very simple. Trust me, you can handle this. You are a guitar player. Your brain is different than most people. All right, you can do this. So arbitrarily, I'm going to say, let's say your song tempo is 126 beats per minute. If you take 60 seconds and divide it by your tempo, 126 in this case, you'll end up with 0.476 beats per second. And what that means is every quarter note occurs every 0.476 seconds. Digital delay units typically display their delay time when you're adjusting them in milliseconds, and there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So take that calculated number of 0.476 seconds, multiply it by 1,000. You get 476. That tells you one quarter note occurs every 476 milliseconds. Pretty easy so far, guys. Hang in there. We're almost there. A quarter note occurs every 476 seconds at 126 beats per minute. We've calculated this already. And an eighth note is half of a quarter note. Take 476 milliseconds divided by 2, and you get 238 milliseconds per eighth note. So that means an eighth note occurs every 238 milliseconds at the tempo of 126 beats per minute. We're talking about dotted eighth notes, right? So a dot in musical notation means that the note length is the equivalent of 1.5 times its normal length. We just calculated that at 126 beats per minute, an eighth note occurs every 238 milliseconds. That means a dotted eighth note must be 238 times 1.5, 357 milliseconds. So to get the correct delay setting for a dotted eighth echo at the tempo of 126 beats per minute, set your delay time to 357 milliseconds. So what does that sound like? Here's me playing just a eighth note, A note, second fret G string, slightly muted so we can get the cool effect at 126 beats per minute. Bunch of eighth notes without the echo. Here we go. Now here are the same eighth notes at 126 beats per minute with 357 milliseconds applied. Sounds pretty cool, right? Now let's use a real-life application. This here's a 6-note pattern that you're probably going to recognize. If you just play it at 126 beats per minute, just like I did the single A notes. First without the echo. And now with the echo. That sound familiar? So spend some time on that. Just play around with it. Play whatever you feel like. You're going to likely, and I know I did this when I first started doing this stuff, I drifted in and out of time. I'd lose sync, that kind of stuff. Just keep playing around with it, and eventually you'll learn how to sync up with the unit. And it's kind of similar to playing with a drummer, and you'll hear that second repeat, and you'll kind of adjust slowly. So you'll get comfortable with it, and it'll probably make you a better player. Your timing will get better over time. You'll be able to sync up with it, and you'll probably be able to play with a metronome a little better too. So let's just really quick recap what we did here. Get your tempo in beats per minute, and I talked about several different ways you can do that. With the apps, with the Top Tempo website. At last resort, ask your drummer, but he probably won't be able to help you. Divide the number 60 by your tempo. Whatever the tempo your song is, divide 60 by that number. 60 on top, tempo on the bottom. Take that number, multiply it by 1,000. Take that number, divide it in half, and take that number and multiply it by 1.5. That is your dotted eighth note setting on your delay unit. That's such a cool effect. I've used it so many times. Hopefully you got a lot out of this video. Comment below if you feel like it, and if you got some other things that you want to talk about or other things that are bothering you about when you're learning how to play guitar or some cool effects, let me know and I'll see what I can get to them. Okay? Thanks.